The asphalt sizzled in the late afternoon as a woman pushed a stroller along the empty sidewalk. In the parking lot next door, a baby pointed sharply at a parked car, eyes locked. The grandmother stopped, looked, and saw smoke coming from under the hood. Inside, a German shepherd trembled, breathing hard, tongue dry. She ran, shouted, pulled on the locked door. No one answered. A teenager on a bike rolled up beside her. Without saying a word, he ran to a car, grabbed a fire extinguisher, and lifted it above the window. And for a second, everything stopped. Love stories with animals. Then subscribe now and never miss one. Thanks for being with us. Now, back to the story. The afternoon was beginning to fade under an overcast sky, though the air remained oppressively humid. It was an ordinary day in Oak Ridge, a small town in rural Vermont, marked by an unhurried routine and the constant chirping of cicadas announcing the heat of late summer. On the sidewalk of a quiet neighborhood, Sarah Miller pushed a baby stroller, guiding her steps like someone seeking just a moment of breeze amid the hot air that seemed to stagnate. At 62, Sarah maintained an elegant simplicity that matched her calm demeanor. This was the first time she had gone out alone with her grandson, little Noah, since he was born just 5 months ago. She was only doing this to allow her daughter Emma to get some much-needed rest. The walk, initially aimless, soon proved longer than expected. In the parking lot of the community center nearby, an aging Ford Taurus remained motionless under the sun. Inside, a German shepherd panted heavily. His eyes searched for salvation through the slightly opened window, but his breathing was already too labored, and the heat inside the vehicle made the air almost unreachable. The dog trembled, visibly dehydrated, his tongue hanging out and his chest rising with effort. He had been left there hours earlier by his owner, Thomas Reeves, who was participating in an event inside and had underestimated the time. At first, nothing seemed abnormal to those passing through the parking lot, except for a detail that few noticed: smoke subtly beginning to accumulate on the front dashboard of the car. As they approached the intersection in front of the community center, baby Noah began to move inside the stroller, first with restlessness, then with more abrupt gestures, arms pointing in a fixed direction, making sounds that departed from the habitual behavior of a child his age. Sarah found it strange. She tried to distract him, wondered if it was hunger or fatigue, but he persisted, his small body leaning, eyes fixed on a point she had not yet identified. Only when she looked over the stroller to her right did she notice the smoke coming from the hood of the parked car. Her heart raced for a reason she didn't immediately understand. She approached cautiously, and that's when she heard it. Soft, muffled barks, like those of an animal that no longer had the strength to cry out. Instinct made her run to the car, but the heat was too intense to approach without hesitation. She called for help, but no one answered. The sound of music and conversations inside the community center drowned out her cries. She tried to open the door, but it was locked. Noah, still in the stroller a few meters away, cried in a continuous and distressed tone, almost as if responding to the suffering of the animal trapped inside. Sarah looked around, searching for someone who could help, but everything seemed quiet on the other side of the street. That's when a teenager on a bicycle passed by and, noticing the scene, slowed down. Still hesitant, he observed the smoke and the grandmother's desperation. Even without fully understanding what was happening, he felt that something needed to be done. The young man, Jason Carter, approached and confirmed the dog's presence. He tried to force the door, without success. The smoke was now becoming thicker and escaping through the cracks with an urgency that no one could ignore anymore. Sarah shouted for help again. Nothing. Amid the tension, Jason ran to a car parked across the street, opened the unlocked door, quickly searched the trunk and found a fire extinguisher. Without thinking twice, he ran back, used the base of the cylinder, and with a strong blow broke the rear window. The crash attracted the attention of some people inside the community center who began to come out, confused by the noise. With the window broken, the boy pulled the dog out. The German Shepherd's body seemed lifeless for a moment, until upon touching the ground, it slightly moved its head, coughing weakly. The crowd began to form slowly, drawn by the commotion. Some recognized the car, knew who it belonged to. Others just silently watched the panting animal lying on the asphalt, his breathing gradually regaining rhythm. Noah, now with a calm face, smiled softly in the stroller, as if, at that moment, everything was in place. The reaction spread quickly, and when the dog's owner was located, he faced disapproving looks and intense questioning. Although Thomas claimed it had been an accident, the community didn't see it the same way. The negligence seemed unforgivable. "What were you thinking, leaving him in there like that?" demanded Mrs. Peterson, an elderly resident known for her protective stance on animals. Thomas, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and glasses, looked genuinely distressed. I thought I'd only be inside for 20 minutes. The meeting ran long. You didn't realize the temperature inside a car can rise over 20 degrees in just 10 minutes. Jason interjected, still kneeling beside the German Shepherd, who was now drinking water from a bowl someone had brought. He could have died in there. Sarah remained by her grandson's stroller, watching the scene unfold. Noah, who had been so distressed just moments ago, was now completely calm, his eyes following the dog's every movement with unusual intensity for a baby his age. Officer Mark Reynolds, who had been called to the scene, approached Thomas with a stern expression. "Sir, I'm going to need to take a report on this incident. We take animal welfare very seriously in this town." As Thomas tried to explain himself to the officer, Sarah wheeled Noah closer to the recovering dog. The German Shepherd, despite his weakened state, lifted his head slightly when they approached. What happened next left everyone around them in stunned silence. Noah reached out from his stroller, making soft cooing sounds, and the dog responded with a gentle whimper, crawling a few inches closer to the baby. Their eyes met in what appeared to be a moment of recognition, though they had never seen each other before. "That's the strangest thing," whispered Janet Collins, a nurse who had come out of the community center. "It's like they know each other." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, not from fear, but from a sense that she was witnessing something beyond ordinary understanding. "Noah was the one who noticed the car," she explained to Janet. "He started acting up, pointing at it before I even saw the smoke." News of the incident spread quickly through the small town of Oak Ridge. By evening, local social media pages were filled with posts about the teenage hero, the negligent pet owner, and the mysterious connection between a baby and the dog he helped save. Emma, Noah's mother and Sarah's daughter, was shocked when she heard the story. "Mom, you could have been in danger," Emma said when Sarah returned home with Noah. At 34, Emma was a single mother, trying to balance her career as a local veterinarian with the demands of raising a newborn after her husband. Daniel had left them just 2 months into her pregnancy. "It wasn't me who did anything dangerous," Sarah explained. "It was that brave boy, Jason. But Emma, there's something else." She hesitated, unsure how to explain what she had witnessed. "Noah, he knew. Somehow he knew that dog was in trouble." Emma smiled indulgently at her mother. "Mum, babies react to all sorts of things. He was probably just upset by your distress." "No, you don't understand. He started acting up before I even noticed anything was wrong. He was pointing at the car. Emma, he knew." Emma glanced at her son, now peacefully sleeping in his crib. As a veterinarian, she had heard stories about animal intuition, about connections between species that defied conventional explanation. But her own child, it seemed too fantastic. "The dog needs a place to stay," Sarah continued. "They're looking for someone to foster him while they decide what to do about Thomas. Apparently, this isn't the first incident." Emma's professional instincts kicked in. "What's his condition?" "Dehydrated, stressed, but Janet said he should recover fully. They're keeping him at the clinic overnight." Emma bit her lip, thinking. Her small house already felt cramped with just her, Noah, and her mother, who had moved in to help after. Daniel left, but something about the story tugged at her heart. "I'll stop by the clinic tomorrow," she said finally, "just to check on him, professionally speaking." What Emma didn't say was that she felt an inexplicable pull toward this story, toward this dog that her son had somehow sensed was in danger. After everything she'd been through in the past year, Daniel's abandonment, the struggle of single motherhood, the financial strain, perhaps this was the universe offering something positive, something healing. As night fell over Oakridge, 3 souls lay awake. Sarah contemplating the mysterious ways of the world, Emma wondering if her practical life was about to take an unexpected turn, and at the veterinary clinic across town, a German shepherd whose gaze remained fixed on the door, as if waiting for someone he knew would eventually come. The next morning, Emma Miller stood outside the Oakridge Veterinary Clinic where she worked, her hand hesitating on the door handle. She had dropped Noah off with her mother, telling herself this visit was purely professional, a curiosity. As the town's most experienced veterinarian, it made sense for her to check on the German shepherd from yesterday's incident. Yet she couldn't deny the strange pull she felt, the story her mother had told about Noah's unusual behavior. "You're finally here," said Melissa Thompson, the clinic receptionist, as Emma walked in. "Dr. Anderson has been asking for you. The famous rescue dog is in Kennel 3. Emma nodded, trying to maintain her professional composure. "How's he doing?" "Better than expected. But he's been restless all night, according to the overnight staff. Keeps looking at the door like he's waiting for someone." With a sense of anticipation she couldn't quite explain, Emma made her way to the kennel area. Dr. Robert Anderson, her colleague and mentor, was already there, reviewing the dog's chart. "Ah, Emma," he said, looking up. "I thought you might come in today despite it being your day off. Heard your family was involved in the rescue." "My mother and son were there," Emma clarified. "I wasn't personally involved." Dr. Anderson nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. At 68, with over 40 years of veterinary experience, Robert had seen his share of unusual animal behaviors. "Well, you should know we've been calling him Max. No collar, but he has a microchip. Registered to Thomas Reeves, who, as I understand it, is now facing charges for animal neglect." Emma approached the kennel cautiously. Inside, the German shepherd lay on a blanket, his intelligent eyes immediately fixing on her. There was no aggression in his gaze, only a penetrating intensity that made Emma feel as if he was looking straight into her soul. "Hello, Max," she said softly. The dog's reaction was immediate. He stood up, tail wagging cautiously, a low whimper escaping him as he pressed closer to the kennel door. "That's the most animated he's been since he got here," Dr. Anderson observed. "He must sense your kind heart." Emma wasn't so sure. There was something in Max's behavior that went beyond typical canine friendliness. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the kennel door. Dr. Anderson nodded, and Emma carefully entered the enclosure. Max didn't jump or bark. Instead, he approached slowly, sniffing her hands and clothes with deliberate focus. "It's like he's looking for something," Emma murmured. "Or someone," Dr. Anderson suggested. Emma spent nearly an hour with Max, checking his vitals, assessing his condition, and simply building trust. By the time she prepared to leave, a decision had already formed in her mind, though she wasn't ready to acknowledge it yet. "What will happen to him?" she asked Dr. Anderson. "Animal control is involved now. Thomas has already signed surrender. Papers. Smart move on his part, given the circumstances. Max will need a foster home until he's cleared for adoption." Emma nodded, scratching behind Max's ears one last time. "Let me know if you need any volunteers," she said, trying to sound casual. Dr. Anderson's eyes twinkled with understanding. "I already have the paperwork ready for you to sign." Later that afternoon, Emma sat on her small front porch, watching her mother rock Noah in the old wooden swing. She had yet to tell Sarah about her decision to foster Max. The practical part of her brain kept insisting it was a terrible idea. A single mother with a 5-month-old baby taking in a traumatized German shepherd. Yet something deeper, more intuitive, told her it was exactly what they all needed. "Mom," she began cautiously, "what would you think about having a dog around for a while?" Sarah stopped rocking, a smile spreading across her face. "You're going to foster him, aren't you? The German shepherd from yesterday," Emma sighed. "Is it crazy? I mean, with Noah and everything?" "Sometimes the craziest decisions are the ones that make the most sense," Sarah replied, looking down at Noah, who was now awake and alert in her arms. "Besides, I think someone would be very happy about it." She nodded toward Noah, who was looking around with unusual interest, as if he understood they were discussing something important to him. The next day, after a home inspection from Animal Control and signing numerous forms, Emma brought Max home. She had prepared a space for him in the mudroom, expecting a period of adjustment as he got used to his new environment. What she hadn't expected was Noah's reaction. As soon as Emma walked through the door with Max on a leash, Noah, who was sitting in his bouncer in the living room, began to wiggle and coo with excitement. Max's ears perked up immediately, and he gently pulled toward the sound. Emma, still cautious, kept a firm grip on the leash. "Easy now," she warned. "Remember what we talked about, Max. Gentle around the baby." But her concerns proved unnecessary. When Max finally saw Noah, he approached with such deliberate gentleness that even Sarah, who had been slightly apprehensive, relaxed. The dog sat down a respectful distance from the bouncer, his eyes fixed on Noah with what could only be described as adoration. Noah, for his part, reached out his tiny hands toward Max, making happy, gurgling sounds that Emma had never heard from him before. "This is uncanny," Sarah whispered, watching the interaction. In the days that followed, Max settled into the Miller household with surprising ease. He was well-trained, obedient, and showed no signs of aggression or anxiety. But it was his relationship with Noah that truly amazed everyone who witnessed it. Max would lie beside Noah's crib during naps, alert to the slightest sound. When Noah was awake, Max was his constant companion, patiently enduring grabby hands and uncoordinated pats. Emma began to notice that Noah seemed more settled with Max around. He cried less, slept better, and even showed more interest in trying to crawl when Max was nearby, as if motivated by the desire to get closer to his canine friend. Word of the unusual bond spread through Oak Ridge. Jason Carter, the teenager who had rescued Max, came by to visit and was astonished by what he saw. "It's like they're communicating somehow," he remarked, watching Noah and Max engage in what looked remarkably like a game. Despite Noah's limited mobility, Emma had been thinking the same thing, but had hesitated to voice such an unconventional observation. "I know it sounds strange," she admitted, "but sometimes I swear they understand each other on a level I can't access." Jason, at 17, possessed the open-mindedness of youth. My grandfather used to say that babies and animals are still connected to something we adults have forgotten. Maybe there's some truth to that. Emma found herself increasingly drawn to this perspective. As a veterinarian, she had a scientific understanding of animal behavior, but Max's interactions with Noah defied conventional explanation. And there was still the mystery of how Noah had known Max was in danger that day in the community center parking lot. One evening, about 2 weeks after Max had come to live with them, Emma was folding laundry in the living room while Noah played on his activity mat. Max, as usual, was lying nearby, his attention fixed on the baby. Emma noticed that Noah kept looking toward the kitchen and making frustrated sounds. "What is it, sweetie?" she asked, not expecting an answer from her pre-verbal son. To her surprise, Max stood up and walked to the kitchen. Moments later, he returned with Noah's sippy cup gently held in his mouth, a cup Emma had left on the counter and forgotten about. He placed it within Noah's reach, then looked at Emma as if to say he was thirsty. Emma sat down hard on the couch, the laundry forgotten. "How did you know that's what he wanted?" she whispered. Max simply returned to his spot next to Noah, who happily grabbed the sippy cup and began to drink. That night, after Noah was asleep, Emma called her closest friend, Olivia Parker, a child psychologist at the local elementary school. "Am I losing my mind, Liv?" Emma asked, after recounting the sippy cup incident and other examples of the unusual communication between Noah and Max. "Not necessarily," Olivia replied thoughtfully. "There's actually some research on intuitive connections between children and animals. Nothing conclusive, but enough anecdotal evidence to suggest there's something real happening. But they act like they're having conversations, Liv. Actual exchanges of information." Children Noah's age are in a unique developmental stage. Their brains are incredibly receptive, not yet constrained by language and social conditioning. And dogs, as we know, communicate primarily through nonverbal cues. It's possible they're connecting through channels we don't typically access as verbal-focused adults. Emma considered this. "So you don't think I'm crazy for feeling like there's something special about their relationship? I think you're observing something real, even if science doesn't have all the explanations yet," Olivia assured her. "And honestly, after everything you've been through with Daniel leaving and raising Noah alone, maybe the universe is sending you some help in an unexpected form." After hanging up, Emma checked on Noah one last time before bed. As always, Max was lying beside the crib, his eyes meeting Emma's with an intelligence that still startled her sometimes. "You're looking out for him, aren't you?" she whispered. Max's tail thumped softly against the floor, a gentle affirmation. Emma knelt beside him, running her hand through his thick fur. "Thank you," she said simply. As she turned to leave, she caught sight of a small, stuffed animal that had fallen from Noah's crib. Without being asked, Max carefully picked it up and placed it on the nearby rocking chair, out of Noah's reach, but where Emma would see it. Such small acts of awareness and helpfulness had become routine, yet each one still amazed her. Max wasn't just a pet or even a guardian. He was becoming an essential part of their family unit, filling a gap Emma hadn't fully acknowledged was there. Outside, the late summer evening was giving way to early signs of autumn. Leaves were just beginning to turn, and the air carried a hint of the coming change in seasons. Emma stood at the window, watching the night settle over Oakridge, feeling for the first time in many months that despite all the challenges, things were going to be all right. As September gave way to October, the trees in Oakridge transformed into a tapestry of crimson and gold. Emma had settled into a new routine with Noah and Max, finding an unexpected harmony in their unconventional family unit. The foster arrangement had evolved from temporary to indefinite, with Emma starting the formal adoption process for Max. No one questioned this decision. It seemed obvious to anyone who saw them together that Max belonged with the Millers. One crisp Saturday morning, Emma was organizing Noah's baby clothes, sorting out the ones he had outgrown to donate them. Max lay nearby, occasionally bringing her stray socks he found under the furniture. Noah was napping in his crib, the baby monitor crackling softly with his gentle breathing. The doorbell rang, causing Max to stand at attention, ears perked but not barking. He had quickly learned that loud noises disturbed Noah's sleep. Emma opened the door to find Thomas Reeves standing on her porch, looking uncomfortable and out of place. His court-mandated community service hours at the animal shelter had just ended, and the gossip around town was that he'd been trying to improve his image by volunteering additional hours. "Dr. Miller," he began awkwardly, "I hope I'm not intruding." Emma stiffened, instinctively blocking the doorway. Though Thomas had legally surrendered Max and couldn't reclaim him, his presence still made her uneasy. "What can I do for you, Mr. Reeves?" Thomas shifted his weight, eyes downcast. "I wanted to apologize in person for what happened with Max and to thank you for taking him in." He hesitated, then added, "I also brought some of his things." He gestured to a box in his car. "His favorite toys, his bed, some special food he likes." Emma's expression softened slightly. Whatever his past mistakes, Thomas seemed genuinely remorseful. "That's thoughtful of you." As Thomas retrieved the box, Max appeared in the hallway behind Emma, his body language cautious but not fearful or aggressive. When Thomas saw him, he stopped, eyes filling with emotion. "He looks good," Thomas said quietly. "Better than he ever did with me, if I'm being honest." Max approached the door slowly, sniffing the air. To Emma's surprise, he didn't show any signs of distress at seeing his former owner. "I never deserved him," Thomas continued, setting the box down on the porch. "My wife and I got him as a puppy 3 years ago. After she left me last year, I kept him more out of spite than love. He deserved better." Emma nodded, not quite ready to offer absolution, but acknowledging his honesty. "Would you like to say hello to him?" Thomas knelt down, maintaining a respectful distance. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. Max took a few steps forward, allowing Thomas to gently pat his head. "I'm sorry, Max. I'm glad you found people who love you properly." After Thomas left, Emma brought the box inside, curious about this glimpse into Max's past life. Among the toys and dog supplies, she found a worn leather collar with a tag bearing not the name Max, but Guardian. Guardian," Emma murmured, turning the tag over in her hand. Max sat beside her, watching with those intelligent eyes that still sometimes unnerved her. Later that evening, while Noah played on his activity mat with Max attentively watching, Emma mentioned the discovery to her mother. "Guardian is a peculiar name for a pet," Sarah remarked, chopping vegetables for dinner. "Though it certainly fits him now." Emma nodded, watching as Max gently nudged a ball back toward Noah when it rolled too far away. "It makes me wonder about his background. Thomas said they got him as a puppy, but what if he was trained for something specific? His behavior is too deliberate sometimes." Sarah paused her chopping, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "You know, that reminds me of something I read about recently. There's a program in Minneapolis that trains dogs to detect seizures in children before they happen. Some of these dogs can sense changes in body chemistry or subtle behaviors that humans can't perceive." "Service dogs," Emma said, her professional interest piqued. "But Max doesn't have the typical service dog temperament. He's too, independent-minded." "Not all service dogs work the same way," Sarah pointed out. "And anyway, it was just a thought. Maybe he's just extraordinarily intuitive." The conversation might have ended there, if not for what happened 2 days later. Emma had taken Noah and Max to Oak Ridge Park for their regular morning walk. The autumn air was brisk, and colorful leaves crunched underfoot as Emma pushed Noah's stroller along the paved path. Max walked beside them, unleashed but perfectly obedient, never straying far. They had just rounded the pond when they encountered Olivia Parker walking with her 7-year-old nephew, Tyler, who was visiting for the weekend. Tyler, a lively boy with tousled brown hair, was delighted to see the dog and asked permission to pet him. Of course, Emma agreed, watching as Max patiently allowed the child's enthusiastic attention. Olivia and Emma chatted while Tyler played, with Max tossing a stick for him to fetch. Noah watched from his stroller, bouncing excitedly at the game. It was an idyllic scene until it wasn't. Without warning, Max suddenly abandoned the game and raced back to Noah's stroller. Before Emma could react, he began pawing gently but insistently at Noah's chest, whining in a way she had never heard before. "Max, stop that!" Emma scolded, moving toward them. But Max was persistent, and Noah had begun to make strange, gasping sounds. Olivia, with her training in child development, recognized the signs immediately. "Emma, I think he's choking." Emma's medical training kicked in instantly. She snatched Noah from the stroller and turned him face down across her forearm, delivering firm back blows between his shoulder blades. After the third blow, a small acorn shot from Noah's mouth, landing on the grass. "Oh my God," Emma gasped, clutching Noah to her chest. Her son coughed a few times, then began to cry, a sound that had never been more welcome to her ears. How did he even get that? He was strapped in his stroller the whole time. Olivia picked up the acorn, examining it. The wind must have blown it in. They're falling everywhere this time of year. Emma was trembling now, the adrenaline crash hitting her hard. If Max hadn't, she couldn't finish the sentence, the possibility too terrifying to voice. Max sat beside them, alert but calm, as if what he had done was nothing extraordinary. "Emma," Olivia said slowly, her psychologist's mind connecting dots. "This isn't the first time Max has shown unusual awareness about Noah, is it?" Back at home, after Noah had been thoroughly checked and was napping peacefully, Emma sat with Olivia and Sarah at the kitchen table, a laptop open before them. "I've been doing some research," Olivia explained, scrolling through several open tabs. "There are documented cases of dogs detecting medical emergencies before they happen. Not just seizures, but diabetic crashes, heart attacks, even certain types of cancer." "But Noah doesn't have any of those conditions," Emma pointed out. "No, but what if Max's sensitivity isn't limited to specific medical conditions? What if he's just extraordinarily attuned to physical distress in general?" Olivia navigated to another page. "Look at this study from the University of California. They found that some dogs can detect subtle changes in human scent that occur during physiological stress, even before visible symptoms appear." Sarah, who had been quietly listening, suddenly stood up. "Wait here," she said, disappearing into her bedroom. She returned moments later with a faded newspaper clipping. "I knew I remembered something. I saved this years ago because I found it so fascinating." The article, yellowed with age, described a family in Idaho whose dog had alerted them to their infant's respiratory distress during the night, saving the baby's life. The dog had no formal training, but seemed to possess an innate ability to detect the subtle changes that preceded a dangerous breathing episode. "They called it interspecies intuition," Sarah explained. "The theory was that some animals, particularly dogs, can form such deep bonds with humans that they develop an almost psychic awareness of their physical state." Emma stared at the article, then at Max, who was lying by the baby monitor as he always did during Noah's naps. "So you think Max has this ability?" "I think it's worth considering," Olivia replied. especially given what happened today, and the incident your mother described when Noah somehow sensed Max was in danger in that car. Emma's scientific mind struggled with the implications. Are we saying they have some kind of psychic connection? Because it sounds incredible, Sarah interjected, but so does a dog detecting cancer by smell, and we know that happens. Maybe we don't need to label it. Maybe we just need to accept that there's something special about their bond. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the scene at the park, imagining what might have happened if Max hadn't been there. The thought was unbearable. Eventually, she got up and went to check on Noah. She found Max, as always, lying beside the crib. But tonight, instead of just watching her enter, he stood and moved aside, as if inviting her to join his vigil. Emma sat on the floor beside him, resting her hand on his warm, solid back. "How do you do it?" she whispered. "How do you know?" Max leaned against her, a comforting pressure in the darkness. The next morning, Emma called Dr. Anderson and took the day off from work. After dropping Noah at Sarah's knitting circle, where several grandmothers would be delighted to fuss over him, she drove to the neighboring town of Maplewood, where the regional animal shelter was located. She had a hunch that needed investigating. Carol Jenkins, the shelter director, greeted Emma warmly. "Dr. Miller, what brings you out this way? Not looking for another addition to your family, I hope?" she teased. "Actually, I'm trying to learn more about my current addition," Emma explained. "I'm wondering if you have any records about Max, or Guardian, as he was apparently called before, beyond what Thomas Reeves provided." Carol's expression turned thoughtful. "Let me check our database. Sometimes we get historical information when animals are microchipped." After some searching, Carol pulled up a file. "Here's something interesting. Before Thomas adopted him from the Minneapolis shelter 3 years ago, Guardian was part of a research program at the University of Minnesota, a study on canine cognitive abilities and human-animal bonding." Emma's pulse quickened. "Do you have any contact information for the researchers?" An hour later, Emma was on a video call with Dr. Abigail Foster, a cognitive ethologist who had led the research program. "I remember Guardian well," Dr. Foster said, her face animated on Emma's laptop screen. "He was one of our most remarkable subjects. His empathic abilities tested off the charts, especially with children." "Empathic abilities?" Emma prompted. "The capacity to sense and respond to human emotional and physiological states," Dr. Foster explained. "Most dogs have this to some degree. It's why they make good companion animals. But Guardian demonstrated an exceptional sensitivity, particularly to stress signals and physiological changes that precede medical events." "Like choking?" Emma asked, thinking of the incident at the park. "Potentially, yes. Our research suggested he could detect subtle changes in breathing patterns, heart rate, even biochemical shifts that humans can't perceive." Dr. Foster leaned closer to her camera. "May I ask why you're investigating this? Has Guardian displayed these abilities in your home?" Emma shared the various incidents: Noah's apparent awareness of Max in the hot car, Max's uncanny ability to understand Noah's needs, and the critical intervention at the park. Dr. Foster listened intently, her scientific curiosity clearly piqued. "What you're describing aligns with our findings, but it goes beyond them in an interesting way. The bi-directional nature of their communication, the baby sensing the dog's distress, that's something we theorize but never documented conclusively." "So this is real?" Emma asked, still struggling to reconcile these revelations with her scientific worldview. This connection between them. "As real as any bond we can measure," Dr. Foster affirmed, "though science still hasn't caught up with all the mechanisms involved. What I can tell you is that Guardian was specifically bred and selected for these traits. His lineage traces back to dogs that served in therapy programs for autistic children, where similar intuitive connections were observed. After the call ended, Emma sat in her car in the shelter parking lot, processing everything she had learned. There was a scientific explanation for Max's abilities, or at least the beginnings of one. But science couldn't fully explain the depth of the bond that had formed between her son and this extraordinary dog. As she started the drive back to Oak Ridge, Emma felt a strange mix of relief and wonder. The mysteries surrounding Max weren't completely solved, but they were starting to make sense within a framework she could understand. More importantly, she now knew with certainty what she had suspected all along. Max wasn't just Noah's pet or protector. He was, as his original name suggested, his guardian in the truest sense of the word. As October deepened, Oak Ridge was transformed by fall's full splendor. The connection between Noah and Max, or Guardian, as Emma sometimes found herself thinking of him now, had become a topic of quiet fascination in their small community. Word had spread about the incident at the park, adding to the growing legend of the baby and his remarkable dog. Emma had just finished sharing Dr. Foster's insights with Sarah one evening when her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at the screen and froze, her face draining of color. "Emma, what is it?" Sarah asked, immediately concerned. Emma passed her the phone wordlessly. The message was from Daniel Wilson, Noah's father. "I'm coming to Oak Ridge next week. We need to talk about our son." Sarah's expression hardened. After 10 months of silence, now he wants to talk? Emma took the phone back, her hands trembling slightly. "He has rights, Mom. Legally, he's still Noah's father, even if he hasn't acted like one." "What does he want?" Sarah demanded. "Money, visitation, to disrupt the life you've built without him?" "I don't know," Emma admitted, "but I have to meet with him." The days leading up to Daniel's arrival were filled with tension. Emma found herself watching Noah more closely, treasuring their peaceful routine and wondering how Daniel's reappearance might disturb it. Max seemed to sense her anxiety, staying closer than usual, his warm presence a constant comfort. When the day finally came, Emma arranged to meet Daniel at Rosie's Diner on the edge of town, neutral territory where they could talk without bringing him into their home. Sarah stayed with Noah and Max, her disapproval evident, but her support unwavering. Daniel looked different than Emma remembered. Thinner, with dark circles under his eyes suggesting sleepless nights. His once meticulously styled hair was longer now, slightly unkempt. He stood when she entered the diner, his expression a complex mix of emotions she couldn't fully decipher. "Emma," he said, his voice softer than she'd expected. "Thank you for meeting me." They settled into a booth, ordered coffee, and navigated the awkward small talk of two people who once shared everything, but now were practically strangers. Finally, Daniel came to the point. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began, "about the choices I made, about Noah." 10 months is a long time to think, Daniel," Emma replied, unable to keep the edge from her voice. He nodded, accepting the rebuke. "I know, I was a coward. When you told me you were pregnant, I panicked. I wasn't ready to be a father. I convinced myself you and the baby would be better off without me." "We are," Emma said flatly. Daniel flinched but continued. "I've been in therapy, working through some things. My father's abandonment, my fear of repeating his patterns." He met her eyes directly. "I know I can't just walk back into your lives and expect forgiveness, but I want a chance to know my son, to be part of his life in whatever way you'll allow." Emma studied him, searching for sincerity and finding, to her surprise, what appeared to be genuine remorse. "Why now?" she asked. My grandmother died, he said quietly. She was the only real parent I ever had after my mom succumbed to her illness. At the end, she made me promise to face my responsibilities, to not let fear define my life. He paused. She also left me some money, not a fortune, but enough to help with Noah's future. I want to set up a college fund for him. Emma's defenses wavered slightly. Daniel's grandmother, Eleanor, had been a kind woman whom Emma had met only twice before the relationship ended. She could believe Eleanor would have pushed Daniel towards responsibility from her deathbed. I appreciate the financial support, Emma said carefully, but Noah isn't just a checkbook obligation. He's a person with routines and attachments and a life you haven't been part of. I know, Daniel acknowledged. I'm not asking to disrupt his life, just for a chance to be in it, on whatever terms you set. They talked for nearly 2 hours, working through the practical aspects of Daniel's potential re-entry into Noah's life. Emma insisted on a gradual approach, short, supervised visits at first, building slowly if things went well. Daniel agreed to everything, his eagerness tempered with respect for the boundaries she established. When Emma finally returned home, emotionally drained but somewhat relieved, she found Sarah and Noah in the living room. Max was performing his trick of retrieving specific toys when Noah pointed at them, a game they had developed that never failed to amaze visitors. "How did it go?" Sarah asked, her expression guarded. Emma sank onto the couch. "Better than I expected, worse than I hoped." She explained Daniel's desire for reconciliation, his grandmother's passing, the college fund, and the visitation agreement they had tentatively worked out. Sarah listened without interrupting, her initial skepticism gradually softening. Eleanor was a good woman, she conceded. If this change of heart is her doing, there might be something genuine to it. Max, who had been watching Emma intently since her return, moved to rest his head on her lap, offering silent comfort. "What about Max?" Sarah asked suddenly. "Does Daniel know about him?" Emma realized she had barely mentioned the dog during their long conversation. "Not really. I said we had a dog, but I didn't go into details about their connection." The first visit was scheduled for that weekend. Daniel would come to the house for lunch and spend a few hours getting to know his son in a familiar environment where Noah would feel secure. Emma spent the days leading up to it in a state of nervous anticipation, cleaning obsessively and rehearsing what she would say. Noah, too young to understand the significance of the upcoming meeting, continued his contented existence, babbling happily to Max and making remarkable progress with his crawling, motivated as always by his desire to follow the dog around the house. Saturday arrived with clear skies and unusually warm temperatures for late October. Emma had just finished dressing Noah in a cute outfit, perhaps trying too hard, she admitted to herself, when the doorbell rang. Max immediately positioned himself beside Noah's playmat, his posture alert, but not alarmed. Daniel stood on the porch holding a stuffed elephant and looking as nervous as Emma felt. "Hi," he said simply. "Come in," Emma replied, stepping aside. "He's in the living room." The moment Daniel laid eyes on his son, his composure cracked. "He's so big," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "His eyes, they're just like my mother's." Noah regarded this stranger curiously, neither afraid nor particularly interested. But Max's reaction was something else entirely. The German shepherd moved slightly forward, placing himself in a subtle position between Noah and Daniel, his eyes never leaving the newcomer. Daniel, focused on Noah, didn't immediately notice the dog's protective stance. Would it be okay if I sat closer to him?" he asked Emma. "Of course," she answered, watching carefully as Daniel lowered himself to the floor near Noah's playmat. That's when he finally registered Max's presence and intense attention. "Wow, big dog," he commented, offering his hand. Cautiously. Friendly. Very, Emma assured him, but also very protective of Noah. Max sniffed Daniel's extended hand, his assessment almost palpable. After a moment that seemed to stretch, he stepped back slightly, neither welcoming nor rejecting this new person, merely reserving judgment. Daniel offered Noah the stuffed elephant, which the baby accepted with enthusiastic grabbing motions. "I wasn't sure what to bring," Daniel admitted. "I don't really know what 7-month-olds like." "You'll learn," Emma said, surprising herself with the implicit promise in those words. The visit progressed better than Emma had dared hope. Daniel was respectful, attentive, and genuinely interested in every detail she shared about Noah's development. He asked thoughtful questions and listened carefully to her answers. When Noah became fussy before his nap, Daniel didn't panic or pass him off immediately. Instead, he tried to soothe him, looking to Emma for guidance, but not shirking the challenge. Throughout it all, Max remained vigilant, his attention never wavering. Emma noticed how he seemed to be studying Daniel's every move, every tone of voice, every facial expression. It was the same intense focus she had seen when Max was assessing potential threats to Noah's well-being. After Noah went down for his nap, Daniel and Emma sat at the kitchen table with coffee. Max positioned himself in the hallway, where he could see both the kitchen and the nursery door. "He's amazing," Daniel said, and it took Emma a moment to realize he was talking about the dog, not Noah. "The way he watches over him, I've never seen anything like it." Emma hesitated, then decided to share a simplified version of what she had learned. "Max has a special ability to sense Noah's needs. They have a unique bond." Daniel nodded slowly. "I can see that. It's almost like..." He trailed off, searching for words. "Like they understand each other on a level we can't access," Emma finished for him. "Yes, exactly." Daniel looked toward the hallway where Max lay watching them. "I'm glad he has that protection, that connection." A shadow crossed his face. "Even if I wasn't here to provide it." As Daniel prepared to leave, promising to return the following weekend, Emma felt a cautious optimism taking root. People could change, relationships could heal. Perhaps Daniel's return would become not a disruption, but an addition to the family they had created. Max walked them to the door, his manner still reserved, but no longer overtly suspicious. When Daniel knelt to say goodbye to him, the dog allowed. A brief pat on the head, a small concession, but a significant one. "Thank you for today," Daniel said to Emma on the porch, "for giving me a chance I probably don't deserve." "It's not about what you deserve," Emma replied. "It's about what Noah deserves, to know his father, if that father is truly committed to being in his life." Daniel nodded solemnly. "I understand. And I am committed, Emma. I know I have to prove that over time, but I hope you can believe I'm sincere." As his car pulled away, Emma felt Max press against her leg, a warm, solid presence grounding her amid the emotional turbulence of the day. "What do you think, Guardian?" she asked softly, using his original name. "Is he for real?" Max looked up at her with those intelligent eyes that seemed to hold so many secrets, then turned to gaze in the direction of Daniel's departing car. His expression, if dogs could be said to have such things, was one of cautious assessment, neither approval nor rejection, but watchful waiting. It was, Emma reflected, exactly how she felt herself. The weeks that followed brought a cautious new rhythm to the Miller household. Daniel's visits became a regular Saturday fixture, each one a little longer, a little more comfortable than the last. Noah, with the adaptability of infancy, soon recognized his father, greeting him with excited waves and babbles. Max maintained his vigilant observation, but as Daniel proved himself consistent and genuinely caring, the dog's posture gradually relaxed in his presence. November arrived with the first dusting of snow, transforming Oakridge into a glistening postcard of New England charm. Emma, watching Noah's fascination with the white flakes outside the window, realized that her son's first Thanksgiving was approaching, a milestone she had once dreaded facing without a complete family unit. "Do you think we should invite Daniel for Thanksgiving?" she asked Sarah one evening as they prepared dinner. "It seems like the next logical step." Sarah paused her vegetable chopping, considering the question with the seriousness it deserved. "Do you feel ready for that? It's one thing to have supervised visits, another to include him in family holidays." "I'm not sure," Emma admitted, "but Noah seems to be bonding with him, and Daniel hasn't missed a single visit. He calls during the week just to ask how Noah's day was." She smiled faintly. "He even asked for updates about Max." Sarah resumed her chopping, a small smile playing at her lips. "Well, anyone who appreciates that dog rises a few notches in my estimation." The decision was still hanging in the balance when a new development complicated matters further. Dr. Anderson called Emma at home one evening, his voice carrying an unusual note of excitement. "Emma, you won't believe who contacted the clinic today," he began without preamble. "Dr. Abigail Foster from the University of Minnesota. She's putting together a new research study on canine human empathic bonds, and she specifically asked about Max, or Guardian, as she calls him." Emma's grip tightened on the phone. What did she want? "She's assembling a team of special dogs and their families for a 6-month observational study, all expenses paid, plus a research stipend. She mentioned the incredible connection you described between Max and Noah, said it could be groundbreaking for their understanding of interspecies communication." Emma's mind raced. A scientific study could potentially validate what they had been experiencing, provide explanations for the inexplicable bond between her son and their dog. And yet, it would mean regular monitoring, video documentation, some trips to their research facility in Minneapolis, Dr. Anderson continued. "I told her I'd pass the information along to you. No pressure, of course, but it's quite an opportunity." That night, after Noah was asleep, Emma sat on the back porch with Max beside her, considering Dr. Foster's offer. The practical aspects were appealing. The stipend would help with their tight finances, and Minneapolis was only a few hours' drive from Oakridge. The scientific validation would be satisfying to the veterinarian part of her brain that still struggled to fully accept what she witnessed daily between Noah and Max. But there were complications. Daniel was just establishing a relationship with Noah. A research study would introduce new disruptions, more changes. And something deeper troubled her. The thought of their private, almost sacred connection being studied, documented, perhaps even published. "What do you think, Guardian?" she asked softly, scratching behind his ears. "Would you like to be a research subject again?" Max leaned his head against her knee, his warm weight reassuring. As always, he seemed to understand far more than a dog should. The next day, Emma called Daniel and asked if they could meet at the park before his regular Saturday visit. They walked together along the leaf-strewn paths, Noah bundled against the November chill in his stroller, Max trotting alongside. Emma explained Dr. Foster's proposal, watching Daniel's face carefully for his reaction. "It sounds fascinating," he said when she finished, "and potentially important research." He hesitated. "But it would mean a lot of changes for Noah, right when we're establishing a routine with our visits." Emma nodded, relieved that he understood her concerns without her having to voice them. "There's also the matter of privacy. I know it's irrational, but I worry about Noah becoming some kind of research subject, having his special connection with Max scrutinized and analyzed. Daniel was quiet for a moment, then said, "It's not irrational to want to protect something precious." He looked down at Noah, then at Max. "What they have is, well, it's almost sacred, isn't it? Not something to be dissected in a laboratory." Emma felt a surprising rush of gratitude for his understanding. Exactly. And yet, if their connection could help other children, other families... It's a difficult choice, Daniel acknowledged. But whatever you decide, I want you to know, I'll support it. If that means adjusting our visitation schedule around research trips, we'll make it work. They walked in companionable silence for a while, the unspoken tension of the past receding further with each step. When they reached the playground, Daniel helped unbuckle Noah from his stroller so he could experience his first swing ride. Max positioned himself directly in front of the baby swing, tail wagging as Noah squealed with delight at each gentle push. "He's always making sure Noah's okay, isn't he?" Daniel observed. "Even when there's no danger, he's just checking." Emma nodded. "It's constant. Sometimes I wake up at night and find Max already alert, watching Noah through the crib slats as if he sensed something in his sleep that I couldn't." Daniel's expression grew thoughtful. "You know, my grandmother used to tell me stories about a dog they had when I was born. She claimed it would alert them whenever I had a fever, even before they could feel it themselves." "You never told me that," Emma said, surprised. "I didn't really believe it," Daniel admitted. "I thought it was just one of her folksy exaggerations. But seeing Max with Noah," he shook his head in wonder, "maybe there was more truth to her stories than I gave her credit for." After the park, they returned to Emma's house where Sarah had prepared lunch. The four of them, 5, counting. Max shared a meal that felt remarkably like family. The conversation flowed easily, even Sarah gradually warming to Daniel as his genuine remorse and commitment to Noah became increasingly evident. When Noah went down for his nap, Daniel helped clean up the kitchen, then turned to Emma with an unexpected proposal. "I've been thinking about something," he began tentatively. "The apartment I'm renting in Burlington is up at the end of the month. I've been looking at places closer to Oak Ridge to be near Noah." He hesitated. "There's a small house for rent on Maple Street, just a few blocks from here. I thought maybe it might be good for Noah to have both his parents nearby." Emma felt a complex surge of emotions: appreciation for his commitment to their son, anxiety about what his proximity might mean for their carefully reconstructed lives, and something else she wasn't quite ready to name. "That would certainly make visits easier," she said cautiously. "It's not just about logistics," Daniel replied, meeting her eyes directly. "These past weeks, being around you and Noah, even Max and your mother, it's reminded me of what I walked away from." "What?" I threw away. He took a deep breath. "I'm not asking for a romantic reconciliation, Emma. I know I haven't earned that, but I'd like us to try being co-parents in the true sense. A team raising our son together, even if we live separately." Emma studied him, searching for any sign of the old Daniel, the one who fled at the first sign of responsibility. Instead, she saw only earnest determination and genuine care. "I think that could be good for Noah," she said finally. "Let's take it one step at a time." The decision about Dr. Foster's research offer remained unmade until the following week, when an unexpected incident brought clarity. Emma had taken Noah and Max to the veterinary clinic after hours to catch up on paperwork. Noah was playing in the portable playpen she had set up in her office, while Emma worked at her desk, Max lying attentively nearby. Suddenly, Max jumped to his feet, ears alert, eyes fixed on Noah. Before Emma could react, he was pawing at the playpen, whining urgently. Emma rushed over, heart pounding, to find Noah's face flushed, his breathing slightly labored. She placed a hand on his forehead and gasped at the heat radiating from his skin. "He has a fever," she murmured. "Medical." Training kicking in as she checked his temperature with the thermometer she kept in her purse. 101.3 degrees, definitely elevated, but not dangerously high. Yet Noah had shown no symptoms when they arrived at the clinic just an hour earlier. Max continued his anxious pacing as Emma gathered her things, preparing to take Noah home and call his pediatrician. As she lifted him from the playpen, she noticed something else. Tiny red spots beginning to appear on his chest and neck. A rash. Fever. Classic signs of an allergic reaction. Emma's mind raced, reviewing everything Noah had encountered that day. Nothing unusual in his diet, no new soaps or detergents. Then she remembered the new exam room deodorizer they had started using at the clinic. She had carried Noah through that room on their way in. Could he be reacting to it? She quickly administered the children's antihistamine she kept in her emergency kit, then called Noah's pediatrician, who advised monitoring him closely and coming in if the symptoms worsened. By the time they arrived home, the rash was already beginning to fade and Noah's temperature was dropping. Sarah, initially panicked by their early return, helped settle Noah in his crib while Emma explained what had happened. "If Max hadn't alerted me when he did," Emma said, watching her son's now peaceful sleep, "the reaction might have become much more serious before I noticed. He knew something was wrong before there were any visible symptoms." Max lay in his customary position beside the crib, his vigilance undiminished despite the crisis having passed. That night, Emma made her decision. She called Dr. Foster and declined the research opportunity, explaining that while she valued the scientific importance of the work, her priority had to be Noah's well-being and the stability of their family life. "I understand completely, Doctor," Foster replied, her disappointment evident, but tempered with respect. "If you ever change your mind, or if you're open to more limited participation, perhaps remote observation or interviews, please let me know. What you're experiencing with Guardian and your son is truly special." "It is," Emma agreed. "And that's why I need to protect it, not study it." Thanksgiving arrived with a blanket of fresh snow and a house full of unexpected joy. Daniel, now settled in his rental house on Maple Street, joined the Millers for the holiday meal. Jason Carter, the teenager who had rescued Max, came too, along with his parents. Olivia Parker brought homemade pumpkin pies, and Dr. Anderson stopped by for dessert. As Emma looked around her crowded dining room, she marveled at how much had changed in just a few months. Noah, now nearly 8 months old, sat in his high chair at the table, happily mashing sweet potatoes between his fingers. Daniel, relaxed and engaged, was deep in conversation with Jason about the boys' college plans. Zara, initially so protective and suspicious of Daniel's return, was actually laughing at something he said. And Max, Guardian, lay not in his usual vigilant position, but comfortably under the table near Noah's high chair, accepting occasional treats slipped to him by the guests. His posture was relaxed, his eyes soft as they moved between the baby and the assembled company, no longer searching for threats, but simply taking in the scene of family and connection. Later, as the early winter darkness settled over Oak Ridge, Emma stood at the living room window watching the snowfall. Daniel approached, offering her a cup of hot cider. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked. Emma smiled, accepting the warm mug. "I was just thinking about that day at the community center. If Noah hadn't somehow sensed Max was in danger, if my mother hadn't listened to him, if Jason hadn't been riding by at that exact moment." Lot of ifs," Daniel agreed. "Like links in a chain of, what would you call it, fate, providence?" "Connection," Emma said softly. "That's what Dr. Foster calls it. Interspecies connection, but I think it goes beyond that. I think sometimes we're all connected in ways we don't fully understand." In the center of the room, Noah sat on a blanket surrounded by toys, though his attention was fixed solely on Max, who had settled beside him. As they watched, Noah reached out a chubby hand and patted the dog's head with surprising gentleness for a baby his age. Max responded by inching closer, allowing Noah to lean against his solid warmth. "I missed so much," Daniel said quietly, "but I'm grateful to be here now to witness this." Emma turned to face him fully. "We can't change the past, Daniel, but we can choose how we move forward." She hesitated, then added, "Noah deserves to have his father in his life, a committed, present father." "That's what I intend to be," Daniel promised, "for however long it takes to earn back your trust, to be the father he needs." From across the room, Max lifted his head, his intelligent eyes meeting Emma's with that now familiar look of understanding that still sometimes took her breath away. In that silent exchange, she felt a profound reassurance, a sense that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them. Together, this unconventional family bound by something deeper than blood or circumstance. As if confirming her thoughts, Noah chose that moment to utter a sound that made both Emma and Daniel freeze in amazement. "Mama," he said clearly, patting Max's fur. Then turning to look at Emma and Daniel standing together, he added with equal clarity, "Dada." Emma felt tears spring to her eyes as Daniel reached for her hand, his own emotions evident on his face. Max's tail thumped steadily against the floor, a rhythm like a heartbeat, constant and reassuring. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing Oakridge in pristine white. Inside, warmth and connection filled every corner of the small house, where months before, a series of seemingly random events had set in motion a story that none of them could have anticipated. A baby who sensed a dog in danger, a dog who became a guardian, a family fractured then reformed in a new and stronger pattern, and at the center of it all a bond that defied explanation but transformed everyone it touched. As night deepened and guests departed, promising to return soon, Emma settled Noah into his crib for the night. Max took up his position beside it, ever watchful, ever present. Daniel, helping Sarah with the last of the dishes, moved with the comfortable familiarity of someone finding his place. Emma stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching her son drift towards sleep, his small hand reaching through the crib slats to rest on Max's fur. The sight still filled her with wonder, even after months of witnessing their extraordinary connection. Some things, she had learned, didn't need scientific explanation or research studies to validate their worth. Some things simply were mysterious, beautiful, and transformative in their simplicity. Outside, the first star appeared in the clearing sky, a bright point of light in the gathering darkness. Inside, a family slept, watched over by a guardian who had found his purpose, bound together by connections that would continue to deepen and strengthen with each passing day. Dear listeners, we hope you've been moved by Noah and Max's extraordinary connection. The bond between a child and their guardian, whether human or animal, can transcend understanding and remind us of life's most profound miracles. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking to your left. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore life's complexity and unexpected connections. Don't miss our upcoming content and please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Has an animal ever shown extraordinary awareness in your life? We'd love to hear your stories.